that I was all right. And so we got back to England, and I went up to see him at his camp. He never left England because he was took care of radios on the airplanes, you know, Air Force, yeah. And he thought he'd seen a ghost.
Wow.
When I went in, yeah. I wouldn't have done him that way if I'd have known, you know, but I thought they had, I didn't know that they had informed him that I was dead, you know, I thought. I was telling you about the sergeant getting with us and went raiding in the irrigation ditches, but his name is Sergeant Sessions, and he died this year. See, they're all leaving us.
Yeah.
And but he told, I remembered it when it happened, but we were so tired, you know, and I sort of slipped off a little bit and went out and went to sleep, lying down. And he had thought I was a German, was ready to shoot me, had already ready to shoot me, you know, when I woke up and spoke. And so that was another close call I had. Yeah. Jesus was with me all the way. But anyway, he told my nephew, I had even forgotten about it. At one of the Army reunions, I believe it was in Grand Rapids, Michigan, that we went to that one. And we sat together at our dinner. That was last night. We usually had dinner on Saturday nights, the last night of that reunion. And he told this at the table. I had both my nephews. I had two nephews. One only went one trip with us, but he was there, and he told this was about to kill me.
Get your attention pretty quick.
Oh yeah, that sure makes you study about things that did go on, you know. Yeah, how close calls was. Yeah.
So you were training again in England.
Yeah.
After your experience there.
And we stayed there, and then in September, I believe it's September the 17th. Of course, we done a lot of training in England there before we went back, and a lot of night problems and so forth. But when we got ready to jump in Normandy, in Holland, that was a daytime jump, and same number of men in the plane. And I'll tell this, but now in the Normandy jump, I'll go back to that. It won't hurt. Don't guess. Our weight was 98 pounds. My platoon sergeant that was ahead of the plane of my Normandy jump plane, he sent me a manifest and showed all the voices in there and what we carried. It was about 98 pounds, you know, above our own weight when we jumped in Normandy. But in Holland now, we had a Lieutenant Jansen was the officer of the plane, and I was the first man to jump out of the plane. I was next to the last one in the Normandy jump, but I was the first. I was a bazooka man, had a leg bundle, and I was going to lead them out and jump because of the leg bundle. And while he was there at the door waiting on the green light to give me the jump sign, he got hit in the leg, the flak. And there was two other men in our plane got hit. Those two that got flesh wounds, they went ahead and jumped. But the lieutenant, he was going back to England. And the Germans shot that plane down. But it didn't kill him. They captured him, amputated his leg. And we got a letter from him, from someone's got a letter, I don't know who it was, that he was back home. He lived in Springfield, Missouri, but had lost his leg, you know. And that's when we was in Bastogne that we got that letter. But anyway, those other two went ahead and jumped. And but I didn't see Lieutenant Jansen anymore until I went to a reunion out there in Springfield. And he was there on his crutches. And but there in Holland now, it was pretty easy jump, except the flak hitting the planes and things. But they weren't expecting us. They were in Normandy, and I landed by a canal, I guess 20 feet from it or something, you know. But on the initial jump, I lost my leg bundle. You have ropes that you let them down, so when you landed, they wouldn't cripple you or something, you know. They had about a 20-foot, and I was letting it out, and it broke. Took my M1 rifle, the way that we was hooked up, you know, it took the bazooka, my M1 rifle, all my weapons except my trench knife.
Wow.
But when I got to the ground, you know, and landed, there's other boys there, and I got weapons pretty quick. I didn't have no trouble getting there. And but we done a lot of our combat next to the dikes there. I got a Bronze Star there, close to the dikes. There's 3 or 4 of us. One of them was a sergeant. Roadway on the dikes, German tanks was coming through on us, and we knocked that tank out. He got a Silver Star, and a couple of us got Bronze Stars, you know. But that probably saved a lot of people there, you know, because others couldn't get through. It just stopped them all, you know. And he got the Silver Star, and I got the Bronze Star and another. But the way we done that now, the English had been there and left one of their weapons, anti-tank weapons there. We didn't have no weapons to knock a tank out, you know. But we heard the tanks coming, and we got to fooling around out. There's ammunition there, and we found out here he did had a load, and I loaded it, and he fired and knocked the tank out. Wow. And that, to my knowledge, that would have saved a lot of fellas from getting maybe killed, you know.
How long were you in Holland?
We was in Holland. That's another few day trip. We was going back. I believe it was in. We went in September, October, November. We must not got back till at least 2 or 3 months there. I think maybe 70 days or something like that. And but now, there's another incident in Holland there that while we were on the dikes there, one of my buddies, he's still living, and I didn't see him until the reunions too, you know, and he killed one of our own men. We had outposts up on the dikes, you know, and they had sent too many men up there. There was only 2 for a whole foxhole. I went out there and served guard duty. You talking about frightening, that was frightening now. But this old boy, for some reason, he got 1 extra up there, and they had sent him back, and he didn't know where he's going. And he came right at this old boy's, my buddy's foxhole. And he asked for the password, but he was running. And he didn't give the password, and this old boy killed him. And that's still, you know, they had to put him back in company headquarters for a while. And maybe left him there all the time, I don't know. But I didn't get in touch with him anymore after the war was over until our reunion started. Yeah. And but this same sergeant I was telling you about fixed to shoot me in Normandy. We had another real hard battle there in Holland in the apple orchard. And I didn't know that until here a while back. I knew we was all there in the apple orchard and we been shelled. And I saw him carry one old boy out by the name of, he's in that list over there, Trine, I believe is his name. But anyway, I knew he got killed, and I knew him well. But later on, I found out that this Sergeant Sessions, that was his last combat. He got wounded there, and they sent him back home. He stayed in the hospital for 16 months. Almost lost his leg, but he didn't. And he lived out in Washington State, and he was a professor, English, and he used to come to Swanee, Tennessee up there. I didn't know that scene. I lived 12 miles Swanee, and we didn't get together. But after we started getting together on reunion, he told me how many times he'd been up there at Swanee, you know, taking courses or something at the University of South there. And but he passed away this year. And but at that same night there, is in the daytime really when we got hurt, but it's right at dark. And we was, you know, pretty close to them shooting and everything. And they had us to fix bayonets. We was going into a little town there, and I never did have any hand-to-hand combat now. But we fixed bayonets to have hand-to-hand combat. I guess some of the boys did that same day, some night there. But what saved me from having it, being that bazooka man, our Captain Robert Phillips, he lived in Atlanta. And he said, let's go, his tank there, run around town, German tank, let's see if we can knock it out. We chased that thing all over, but I don't know if we were trying not to get to it or what. Yeah. But I don't believe we ever even fired at it. But we could see it, you know, never could get a shot. But anyway, I don't know what happened to the tank, but I didn't knock it out, you know. But he's with me, the captain was. He also got wounded too. But I don't remember just where that was at, that he got wounded. But after I got home, and he came up to see me from Atlanta. After I'd done been injured, so in a coma. He came by to see me. The last time I ever saw him, because he died. He died pretty young, I think. Now, I believe he was a banker down there in Atlanta. But he found out about me and came up, which I thought was real nice, yeah. But in Holland now, it wasn't so, as I say, it was a good jump. But I believe really, to me, it was rougher than the Normandy campaign. Might have been because I was dropped in the wrong place and wasn't with it really fighting, the hard fighting, you know, there. And, but now, I don't think it was a strategy by the generals or anybody that designed Normandy, but I think the way they dropped in different places, that was a good thing, you know, that they thought we was everywhere. Thought, yeah. Now I've just thought that over here lately, that could have been a good strategy, because we scattered so much.
Yeah.
Germans thought we was many more than what we were, I guess. Now that could be that. Now,
how'd you do after Holland? What was after Holland?
well, after Holland, we went back to Reims, France, and stayed there. I don't know just how long, but we was in tents again. You know, never in, as I said, buildings and thing, and out doing problems and everything. Right. And but they come one evening there, and I thought it was right at dark. Told us to get packed. We was going up in Bastogne. That's when they broke through up there on those people, you know.
Yes.
And we went to Bastogne, and that night. And on the way up there, all of our bedrolls was captured. We lived over on a truck, you know. And all of our medical supplies was captured by the Germans. Mm. And we went on up there, and I know a lot of them have been relieved, said it's awful mean up there, you know, said they'll kill y'all, because they had broke through. And that was their last march, I believe, the Germans. I guess you've read about it. But, of course, had no blankets, no anything, sleeping out in those cold foxholes.
Right.
Icicles in there, just like you've seen on the side of a highway, you know, when big frost or something come. But the only thing that protected me, I think, was I was always cold-natured. And I had my big, heavy overcoat on, that they were warm, you know. Mm-hmm. And I had put my galoshes over my combat boots and saved my feet. You know, a lot of the boys up there in Bastogne, their feet was frozen, and they lost them. Yeah, a lot of them lost their feet. And but I remember one incident up there that. I'd gone back to the little town. I was always out in the woods there, and that's when the Germans dropped their paratroopers in there, and you know, and was filtering in there with us, and when they that's when we had to kill all of those people, and they dropped leaflets while I was out there in the trees, and Ardings, I believe, is the name of the forest one. Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that's what's on my discharge, the Battle of the Ardings, not Bastogne, or, you know, Ardings, yeah. And, but they want us to surrender, you know, so we'd be home for Christmas and all that stuff. And but that's the place where our leader said, General Taylor, he came back to the States for some reason. He wasn't with us. And this other general, you know, what's his name? Do you know?
I don't recall.
But anyway, he's the one that said nuts, you know, when they wanted to surrender. But I went into town for some reason, or they might have put us all in there. I was out on guard duty one night, and this old boy I was telling you about that killed that boy. Mm-hmm. I was out, and they dropped a bomb or something in there, and you could set a good-sized home in his house, you know, pretty close to me, and boy, I couldn't hear anything. And this old boy, when I went back, says, "We sure thought you was dead." Yeah, so we sure thought it got you. But it's just another day of fortune, yeah. Good luck, yeah.
Wow.
And but now we stayed not too many days there, I guess, probably about 16 days, I'd say.
Before you were off to where?
Our next combat was at just the 7th Army Front, I believe. I forget what it.
Okay.
And that was just really ending the war there. But some of our boys got killed in that battle too. There is on 7th Army front there, and it tells in that discharge what the Central Europe, I believe, Central Europe was the combat. And I didn't know where I was at or anything, hardly, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But the town in Holland there was Veckel, and I remember I go back to Holland there and remember about. We did eat. It was in the fall, you know. They had a lot of fruit trees there, and I ate much fruit. We ran out of supplies just about it, and my neck broke out with sores. But there's one the people from Holland there, a druggist. He came up. We was in Foxholes and things. He saw my neck. Right? He went down to his drugstore. It was closed, wasn't open. He went down there and bought back some ointment. But that cured it up right quick. Yeah, I remember that very well. Yeah, and they helped us a lot too, you know. The Holland people did that. But I remember one fellow going all the way through the war there with me. Hodgson was his name, and he got killed there in Bastogne, you know. Yeah, and I don't know how many others, but that's my company there, you know.
Yes.
But it's just really rough, and but now that's about all my combat duty now. But I'd say overall, over 100 days actual, and I didn't miss a minute of any that my company was with, you know, 101st Airborne. I left overseas with them, and when they deactivated after the war, you know, yeah, of course they began to break up the regiments, and I went from 501 regiment to 506. That's on my discharge paper there. When actually I was with the 501st all the way through. Company C, yeah.
Do you remember when you got the word that you'd be heading home, back to the stateside? To return home?
Well, yeah, I had a change of going to Switzerland on a furlough, you know, but I was afraid I'd miss the boat and didn't take advantage of that.
Yes.
And I could have gone, you know, because it was a while. Marseille, France, that's where we left from. And, but I didn't go to Switzerland, and so.
So where'd you end up once they divided you out? I think you said 506? Which?
Yeah, 506, and I guess we went. That's probably where we went there at Marseille. We stayed around our camp there for a long time before we headed back home.
Okay.
And on the way back home now, by boat again, you know, and it was it would have been in December again. Off the storm, and one of our boats broke into. They had to load them off from one. It wasn't my boat that I was in, but they had to load part of the people on my boat. I know we'd tie our cots to the wall, and they'd break and then go all the way across, you know. And that's frightening too, you know. Even the fella that's sort of afraid to get out on a fishing boat.
That's really big time.
Yeah, but I've done a lot of fishing since then. Walleye fishing there.
Yeah. So where'd you go once you came back to the States?
I came direct home. I was discharged up at Camp Atterbury, Indiana. We came back where we went in at Boston, Massachusetts there. And spent the night. They fed us well. And then we got on the train and come to Camp Atterbury. And was discharged the 18th there.
18th
of 1945, December, yeah.
Okay.
And I took a train back to home. I hitchhiked part of the way home, but I took a train from to Nashville, I believe. And then I don't remember but there's a snow on the ground there then, and I hitchhiked from some part there, just about, I don't know what last part it was. And I got home, and went in the house. I never did telephone call or nothing like that. We didn't even have any telephones there where we lived. There was one or two there in the town, you know. And I went in home and had got in out of my army clothes into my civilian clothes before my mother and them ever knew I was there. And that actually happened too. Yeah, and
so they were quite surprised to see you.
Yeah, they were, and I'd already changed back into my civilian clothes. And but then, after I worked there, you know, you said to add some more to the story from or two. About okay, went back, decided I'd fix to get married. And had already, back in, you had to send off a blood test. Little town I lived, and it took about 3 days. And we was waiting on our blood test to come back. I was fixing to get married. And went in the mines and got hurt. And I never did get married then. The lady and I talked it over, and being a paraplegic and everything, I thought that'd be unfair to her, and of course she agreed. And anyway, I went from paraplegic January the 15th of 46, and went to the Veterans Hospital. Stayed 1 year in the Veterans Hospital, and we down there, they gave me some good training. The therapist down there, I had physical therapy and occupational therapy. And there's one little nurse down there, and the ward boys, they really worked hard with me, and I got where I could walk a little bit on crutches and braces. And she, this little nurse, still living, I think. I go see her occasionally, and she's a little bit older than I am. But I stayed there a year, and then after I got out, the community where I lived in, Palmer, the county of Grundy, they wanted me to run for trustee of the county. I ran, got elected. And I served 34 years as trustee. And so I didn't have to go on welfare. People took care of many of us, you know.
34 years. Huh?
Yeah, And then I retired in 1982 from the trustee's office. Only had opposition one time. Well, the first time I ran against the incumbent and beat him. And then the term before I retired, I had opposition, and of course I won, and then I decided I'd retire, let somebody else have to, you know. It was
34 years.
It didn't pay much, but it was a livelihood where where I could take care of. See, my mother had a bunch of little children there at home, and younger than me. I had one brother. Now I'm going to tell him about him later on here. When the war's over, right before the war's over, I had come home from France. Had come from France to England on a furlough. And I was back up Southampton and was going to go back to France to join my outfit, you know, and so I was paged.